my microphone. Right, is that my audio? Is everyone else got audio now?
That's your audio, then you have to add the audio output for your sound. No, I believe, yeah, we can hear now. There's sound.
Yay! Now they have sound.
Hello, test
Hello.
1 2.
Right.
What should I call you?
Hello.
how
Right,
to-
okay, there
how
we go.
to
Sound. Sorry about the sound. That was my bad, guys. Hey, Spurs.
Hello?
Just call me
Do you
Fight.
hear me?
Yes, well, I can hear you. Just call me Fight, okay?
Call you Fight. Okay.
Yeah. Sorry, John. Back to you. It should all be set up now. My bad.
Well, now that it's all set up and people can hear all of us, welcome to the show. We are going to have what I'm expecting to be quite the dumpster fire tonight. Spurs, please prove me wrong for once. And for those who are unaware, we are doing this on Godless Engineers channel because apparently there are some childish asshats out there who have nothing better to do with their lives and are jealous of what is actually taking place
I need
here.
to interrupt. You do need to do the audio output too.
I thought I'd done that. It says audio output capture.
Okay.
But is it moving and is it transmitting?
It says
Yeah.
it is.
Okay. We're good then.
Okay.
Yeah, well, I mean, they say they can't hear me, so, or my audio's super low or something.
All right. I'll put yours up.
Yeah, that's due to the delay. We're all good. I just checked.
Oh, no. Yeah, I can hear me. Well, I mean, I can hear me fine.
Right.
now.
So it should be all good. Right. Sorry about that, guys. Yeah. Back to you again.
All right, and so with that, I am officially host, but also co-mod. The primary moderator for this will be Godless Engineer, and our two combatants this evening. We have Spurs Chemo and Fight the Flat Earth. So with that, I will hand it over to John to go ahead and finish any introductions, ground rules, so even the audience knows exactly what to expect or not expect.
Well, thank you so much for that introduction for me. Thank you, everybody, for being here, especially our two debaters tonight, which this was kind of a surprise thing that I'm going to be hosting it here on my channel. So I'm glad for that. But, we've got Fight the Flat Earth and Spur Chemo. Is that right?
Spurs chemo.
Spurs Chemo.
Spurs chemo.
Like cancer chemo. Okay, got it. Spurs Chemo. They are going to be hashing it out over whether or not the Earth is flat. We don't really have a specific debate topic for tonight, but what I will say is that we're going to have a good, clean debate. You guys try not to talk over each other. I'll give a little bit of leniency for the back and forth. But if I notice somebody is constantly interrupting the other person, I'll have to quiet everybody down and kind of reset us and whatnot and let you guys know that we're here to have a debate and not a yelling match over each other. So we're going to try to do that. I'm going to try my best to stay out of it for the most part. If I feel like there is a need for moving the conversation along or trying to get a point made so that we can move on, I will interject. But other than that, I'm going to let the two debatees talk. I believe we're planning on doing like a more formalized debate tonight, right?
Yeah, I mean, I thought it'd be best if we give each of us have like 5 minutes to kind of give our opening arguments and then have a moderated back and forth. So, I'm more than happy for Spurs Chemo to go first.
Okay, good. So Spurs Chemo can go first. So with that in mind, let's try to keep it like other than opening arguments, let's try to keep it to 1 point each time so that it's not turning into like a gish gallop so that each person can respond to each thing. And I'll try to keep us on track with that. But Spurs Chemo, if you want to go on ahead and start us off with your first 5 minutes, we will. I'll let you take it from there.
Okay. Hello, everybody. Glad to be here. It's rather late, but it's not a problem. The shape of the Earth. as far as I'm concerned, we observe flat. We see flat. I don't see any reason to assume that the Earth is curving. I haven't seen any evidence for what you say is a curving Earth. And after the research that has happened in the last 5-6 years, overwhelming evidence to support the Earth being completely flat. A number of things that will indicate that the Earth is flat, like the horizon. The horizon is a good way of seeing if something is curving or not. We all know that if you go higher on a ball, the horizon should drop away, should fall away. And on a flat Earth, it would extend out away from you. These are just some of the key points as to why we understand the Earth is not a globe and it has to be flat. Now, the true dimensions of that flat Earth are unknown because obviously we don't have the devices or the tools to make those types of measurements. We only have at our disposal assumptions and assuming things. So yeah, I mean, basically that's it won't take 5 minutes. That's basically my stance, how I understand it. So yeah, over to you.
Fight the flat Earth.
Sorry, my bad. I turned that off. Right. First off, I want to say thank you, Spurs, for jumping in at short notice because it was supposed to be Ali B originally.
Thank you. Yeah.
Right. Well, the reason that I think the Earth is a globe with a circumference of 25,000 miles, roughly, is because all the evidence points to that fact. One of the main things that I always go to is that gravity is a thing that we know exists because there is a downward accelerating force of 9.8 meters per second squared. Call it what you want. That does exist, and that force, that natural fundamental part of nature, makes everything a sphere because that's its natural lowest state of energy and equilibrium to be a sphere. That's because I have a knowledge of physics and the way that things would work, and that is the way that the evidence points me. And everyone always goes, well, you can't, you haven't done experiments yourself. You didn't come up with that maths yourself. And the fact is, I don't need to. Science progresses because we stand on the shoulders of those that have come before us and have either proven what they're saying is right or wrong. And then we expand upon that knowledge. I don't see any reason to mistrust the thousands of years of research and advancements that have happened. And I have personally verified that the maths and the physics work when doing my degrees, working in the Royal Navy. Engineering principles work because the maths of the physics of the universe that we are in work.
Oh.
So as far as I'm concerned, there has never been any reason to not think that the Earth is a globe. Yes, I trust the pictures from space. Yes, I trust what the scientists say because it's been demonstrated that you would trust these people because they've become experts in their field, in the same way that you would ask a plumber to come out and trust that he is an expert in what he is doing to fix your plumbing. So I go with the established scientific consensus because I have personally verified the maths myself. I've traveled the world and I've never seen any reason to think it is anything other than a globe. So there we go.
Okay.
So for the rest of this, we can just go back and forward. If you feel like asking me some questions to start with, because that's fine.
Yeah, absolutely. Is that okay, Godless? Can we get into it? How do you want to do it now?
No. Yeah, 5 minutes, and now sort of an organized back and forth. Like I said before, you guys can do if Spurs chemo.
Go on, any way you want. It doesn't matter. Any way you're comfortable.
Okay.
I want you to be comfortable.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if you want to start off by addressing any one particular point that maybe Craig made, or any
Yeah,
one particular point that
absolutely.
supports your side, but try to keep it to one point that we address at a time.
Yeah, okay. So gravity. You spoke about gravity. Being a force. Yeah, so things fall. Why they fall in that direction is unknown. But what we're trying to look at is the force. Can that force be proven? Does mass attract mass? Now, you have what is called the Cavendish. Okay, it seems reasonable. We've got two objects and they're going to attract, but have you eliminated all the other forces, wind, atmosphere, things like that? I don't think that has happened. So what was suggested is, has this been done in a vacuum chamber, or has this been done on the moon? I think this would satisfy a lot of people if you were able to show mass attracted mass in an environment where there was little influence to obviously make these objects gravitate towards each other. Fight.
Okay, so
Mhm.
if a Cavendish experiment was done within a vacuum chamber, that would
Mhm.
kind of satisfy your satisfy the fact that mass attracts mass.
Well,
Would
it
that
would certainly eliminate.
a lot? Yeah, I understand what you're saying, and
Yeah.
obviously, when the Cavendish experiment was first done, the story of it being in a barn and everything, maybe there was a lot of things affecting it, but the Cavendish
Yeah.
experiment has been repeated constantly, and
Uh-huh.
the method of doing the experiment has been improved upon constantly. I don't
Yeah.
know if it has anything, if they've done it in a vacuum chamber or if the instrumentation is within a vacuum chamber. I agree with you, that would remove any, at least a lot of
Influence.
other
Any
things.
influences, right?
Yeah, I agree that that would be, something that would clarify
Right,
if mass
because
attracts mass.
we get accused of denying and dismissing all of the heliocentric model's experiments, but it's simply not the case. The case is that we're not satisfied with the order of the way you do things, because we believe, well, there's going to be influence. It could be magnets. When we want you to eliminate all the variables that could be the cause of why these balls are attracting to each other. These objects, right?
Yeah.
So, knowing that, how can you be satisfied then, therefore, that gravity is a force, mass attracts mass, and so on, if you've never observed such a thing? Back to you.
There is other experiments that have been done aside from the Cavendish experiment. In fact, the mass attracting mass can be proved with a simple digital scale if it's accurate enough. This is something we did during basic training in the Navy when we started our engineering degrees as part of a principle. You hang something off a digital scale, a very, very accurate one, like to 1,000th of a gram, and with a heavy lead weight underneath it, and it shows how much it weighs. And then if you put another massive object underneath it, you put a much more heavier lead weight underneath that, the actual weight of the object being hung increased by like 1/1000th of a degree. I mean, it probably wasn't even that much, but that was what it was. It was able to register that it went up that much, and that kind of proved that adding something there
Yeah.
increased that gravitational force to what was already there with the Earth underneath it.
Well, you see, again, I mean, it's not something that I would just deny outright, but I would say, can this be repeated on a scale that is satisfactory? Okay, it's also good and well saying, yes, we have an experiment or a test, or and we have results here, but unless you can show that it's demonstrable, so you can say every time, look, these are the results, satisfactory, conclusive, then I cannot see why you would go with the assumption that gravity is a force.
Well,
in the way that you're describing it.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, when you move, just to clarify, because I know probably Anthony Riley will be listening in his last video, of the fact of gravity being a force. Obviously, it can be described as a force within Newtonian physics, but that's not necessarily what it is within the model. I just want that to be understood. Technically, the way it could be described as it is the warping of space-time which manifests as a force within Newtonian physics. But that's beside the point. I just wanted to kind of clarify that.
Right.
Now, the reason that I wouldn't say it's an assumption, I would say it's an evidence-based decision, or an evidence and reason-based direction that I've come to say that there is a downward accelerating force of 9.8 meters per second squared, because not only with the Cavendish experiments and things like that, it's very
that's not the
hard.
argument. I'm not arguing with you about things falling. Yes, things fall.
I understand. I was just trying to explain that I've done other things other than just the Cavendish experiment and other things of saying that mass attracts mass. It's when you do the physics and you do the part of your physics degrees is proving that you can demonstrate the principles that you've learned. So you do experiments with different weights and springs, figuring out torques and tensions and everything, and you have to demonstrate that these things are correct. And one of the variables in all of these is that downward accelerating force.
No, but we're not trying to prove the downward force. We know things fall. What we're trying to prove
is that mass attracts mass.
This question is related to things like the vacuum next to the atmosphere. Now, I'm not trying to get into all those things, but I'm just saying this type of gravity, mass attracting mass, we would need proof of that, like absolute proof.
And what have, as the flat Earth community, what attempts have you done to prove or disprove that mass attracts mass? Have you created your own experiments? Have you done your own versions?
We have an experiment. We have the Cavendish, but the Cavendish needs to be done under the right conditions.
And have flat earthers attempted to do this?
Yeah, no one's disagreeing with Cavendish thus far. As far what we're saying is we disagree with the parameters that you do Cavendish under.
Okay, and I understand that you disagree, and it comes back to the argument of having an independent variable that you can manipulate and things like that, right?
Right.
But my question to you as a flat earther is: have you or have any other flat earthers tried to do this experiment under better conditions that would meet your parameters, or is it just the fact of you guys need to do it?
Not that I know of, no. To flat earthers, gravity is a magical force. So you would be trying to experiment with magic. Okay, so unless because it's your claim, remember, you claim that water it sticks to the board because of gravity, this force. So now we need evidence of this force. Okay, so this is the point. So we're not going to try to prove something that we know does not exist.
But that's not really how science works. With science, you have to disprove everything. If you have a hypothesis, then the way that you would figure out that hypothesis is correct is by disproving everything else.
We don't start with the hypothesis. You see, what we do
with natural observation. I didn't really want to get into arguing about the way that the scientific method works.
It's not just an observation. Okay, you don't just look at something and then start doing science. The observation has to be a phenomena that you don't understand, that needs explaining with science. Yes.
Okay.
Now, obviously, things like sunsets. This is a phenomena that you guys want to know. How do sunsets work? Now, this question needs to be answered with science. It can only be answered with science. It cannot be answered with mathematics because it would be based on assumptions, because you obviously don't know where the sun is. But if we see the sun and we ask the question, how is the sun setting in that manner?
Yeah.
Once again, how would we be able to test the sun, test the horizon, test the atmosphere, and manipulate our surroundings? Okay, so the problem that we have is that instead of you guys testing it, you make assumptions. You say, well, it's disappearing over the curvature, but it hasn't been tested. So unless we can test the sun disappearing and rising, it's going to be an assumption. Now, I can't see how you can disagree with that.
I would disagree with the fact that it has been tested, because we have observed it happening from a higher altitude, and we understand how refraction works, and we can, based on the for instance, if we see a sun setting at the equator,
right?
When the sun sets at the equator, it's really quick. Like the last kind of couple of minutes, it's like boom, the sun's gone. But if you watch the sun set nearer the poles, it's a much more gradual thing.
Well, think about it like this. Look at it. This is how I look at it. Okay, so you're a 6 foot guy, right?
6'1".
You're
to be precise.
6 foot. Let's imagine a guy is 6 foot, standing at the beach. He sees the sunset. So you would have us believe that the sun is setting 6 kilometers, 6 miles away over the curvature.
Was it 4.2 kilometers? I can't remember the exact math, but based on your height, obviously your observable horizon would increase based on your height. Yes, we agree on this, right? Yeah.
Yeah, so we see the sun set at 6. But let's just say 6 foot 6 miles. We don't know the precise number, but let's just say 6 foot 6 miles. We see the horizon.
Yeah.
Are you saying that the sun is 6 miles away?
No.
So we know that it's not setting behind a solid obstruction.
And why would you say that?
Well, you say it's disappearing behind that obstruction. That's 6 miles away.
Well, technically what's happening is the Earth is turning away from it.
The Earth is, well, that's another claim. See, this is the problem that we have here, you see. I try to limit the claims to ones that we can actually repeat, observe, and test. Now, you're going to say the Earth is turning.
Okay, sorry, carry on. I didn't mean to interrupt.
Yeah. You've gone from gravity. I've tried to be very careful. I've tried to use science with you and say, isn't it fair to say, if there's a phenomena that we don't understand, then we should introduce science. And if we can't introduce science, we should either leave it alone or, work hard to try and, scientifically prove this claim. And now you've gone from science to an assumption. Now, how am I supposed to, how am I supposed to discuss this situation where you're saying the Earth turns? No proof. There's gravity.
Okay. Well, there's the thing. If I could just respond to that.
Sure.
When I'm saying something, it's probably best to think that I'm not making an assumption, because when I'm saying the Earth's turning, I can then provide evidence to back that up. So I'm not just saying it as an assumption. Again, it's if you want to apply the scientific method, I've observed things happening like the sun setting, the stars moving in the sky. So I've come up with a hypothesis, which is that to me it looks like we are on a 3D object that is rotating in space.
Sorry to interrupt you. Please forgive me, but this is the problem. You've jumped from phenomena. I'm working on my hypothesis. From phenomena question to hypothesis. Tell me about your research. How have you researched?
That's what comes after the hypothesis. You make the hypothesis and then you test that hypothesis. You research and test that hypothesis to see if it's correct. And then if all the research and everything turns out to be correct and backs up your hypothesis, then it progresses to becoming a scientific theory. So, there is no assumptions there. The order of my thinking. What is the
definition of a hypothesis? What's the definition?
It is an explanation for a natural phenomenon.
So hold on. So you were explaining something before you researched it. How was that possible?
No, I'm not explaining it.
You're giving the hypothesis. You just said you're explaining something.
The hypothesis isn't an explanation. The hypothesis is what I think it is, right?
Right.
Now, again, let me start from the beginning. Spurs, if you don't mind, let me just start from the beginning.
Okay, guys. All we're doing is arguing over definitions, and I fucking hate that particular game.
Yeah.
So, first of all, Spurs, could you define the scientific method as you see it? What do you think the steps are? And then maybe we can go from there.
Yeah, sure. In order to, implement science, you would have to ask a question. It's not any question, because we can know things, as we've established in other arenas, that you can know things without science. So you don't just apply science to any question. Yes. So the first step for me would be something that looks like a phenomena that needs explaining. So then we would do some background research. You can't explain. I cannot explain this sunset without actually researching. What is research? Researching is, observing every horizon from different angles, different positions, repeating, looking at the atmosphere, optics, magnification, all these types of things. So then we would construct a hypothesis. Then we would test this with an experiment, of course. And then we would draw a conclusion. That's the steps for me. So what's happening here is you are explaining something.
Hold on, Spurs.
Yeah.
So you've laid out what you think the scientific method is. Fight the flat Earth. Do you have any
issue with that?
Issue with that?
Yeah, a hypothesis isn't an explanation. A hypothesis is an idea that needs testing. You don't do a bunch of research and everything to get your hypothesis. You observe a natural phenomenon, and based on that natural phenomenon, you have a hypothesis. And for instance, I see the sun setting and the stars rotating in different directions based on where I am on the planet. So my hypothesis based on that is that the Earth is rotating around what is happening. So then I would research and test that hypothesis to see if it was correct. You don't the hypothesis
there's nothing wrong with what you're doing. There's nothing wrong with this apart from the order, because when I look at the definition of hypothesis, it tells me a supposition or proposed explanation made on the basis of limited evidence as a starting point for further investigation.
That's exactly what I just said.
Instead of you researching, you have limited evidence and you're making an assumption. And
yes, like it's that, but then aren't we just agreeing with what I've just said, that the hypothesis is something based on limited information? So you don't do a bunch of research to get your hypothesis.
Excuse me, that's not science. That's not the scientific method. Your starting point.
Didn't we just agree that was? I'm confused.
Well, you bypassed fight. You've bypassed the research.
No, the research comes after the hypothesis, right?
Hold on. Let me step in here, Spurs. I gotta call you out on this one, man. How can you test a hypothesis if you how can you do the research or whatnot for the hypothesis unless you already know what your hypothesis is and know what variables you're testing for? Like, you're making very vague kind of statements there about what you want to test, and it seems like you're formulating a hypothesis sort of, and then doing all of the test and experimentation for that. And then you're saying you're generating the hypothesis. I think that's where the disconnect is going here.
Well, no,
you're not actually describing the scientific method.
Yeah, I'm describing the order of the science.
Well, there's one thing about the scientific method is that not every scientific endeavor needs to apply every step of the scientific method, nor does it need to apply them in that particular order.
I agree.
You will find that within the definition of the scientific method.
But if you're trying to answer the sunset question, well, then you cannot answer this with mathematics. You need science.
Okay, I think you're saying science in a different way to me, to be fair there. And I didn't mention mathematics there once. What I said was I observed something happening, so I came up with a hypothesis. And then the research stage would probably include a bunch of mathematics to back up your hypothesis, to then see if those mathematics comport to the reality of the situation. But you wouldn't just do it for that one situation. You would try and get that situation in variable different ways. You would do it at different times in the years from different locations. You wouldn't just go with that one single observation and then and then come to a conclusion.
That's your research part.
Yeah,
then
which comes after the hypothesis.
Well, okay, let's just agree to disagree. I disagree with your order. I disagree with the order of things. You already have an explanation for something that you haven't researched. Okay, you're answering the question, you're jumping the gun, and you haven't even performed an experiment with the conclusion. So you're all over the place in my mind, and this is a problem that you're having, and this is why
I've got to disagree with you, Spirkismo, because I am applying the scientific method in an appropriate way. I am. You can't research something that you don't know. You can't research to then come up with an idea. You have an idea, and then you research to see if that idea is correct. So I can't, between my observation and hypothesis stage, there cannot be a...
Hold on, stop.
Hang on. let
No,
me phrase this in a way
No, hold on,
that a
Jared.
question that you can
No, no,
understand.
no,
Spurs,
if you do that. This is why I
Spurs,
said
you need
3
to
against
stop.
1.
Spurs.
This is not right. I'm leaving because
No.
Spurs, I'm
I've got
trying to
I
help
want to
you.
say something. I want to respond
Spurs,
to what
I'm
you're saying.
trying to help you.
No, I want to respond.
I'm going
what
to
you're
phrase.
Right, Jared,
Yes.
let him respond first. It's cool. Let
Right.
him respond.
All right, don't switch to another topic then.
No,
Spurs.
I'm talking about his starting point. He's saying that he can have an explanation. To me, that's like a fantasy idea, like Santa Claus exists.
Bottoms up.
Santa Claus exists. So now I'm going to research this topic, come up with an analysis and a conclusion. This is how we understand you've started your starting point. This is why you've asked the question and you've bypassed the research. Jared, go ahead.
Here's a question for you, Kimo. How can you research if you don't know what you're researching about?
You're researching the question that you're asking.
Which is
No.
your hypothesis? That's my
No,
point.
no, that's the topic. You're researching sunsets. That means you research everything you know about sunsets. You go all over the world,
Which is
every single
the
sunset from every single
foundation.
angle, from every single. See, this is 3 against 1. This is what I was saying. Jared should not be in this debate. This is what I was saying, Mike.
Trying to help you along, Kimo.
All right,
No, you're
You're
not.
right. I'm actually trying to
guys,
get on
let-
the
let's stay between me and Jared then.
Everybody needs to
Guys,
stop
not
right
having-
now.
You
Right
jumped
now.
in, Jared.
Everybody stop. Everybody stop right now. Okay. Jared is a moderator. He is here to help the conversation along. Nobody on this side of it is trying to be antagonistic towards you. Okay, Spurs? We're just trying to get the conversation going in a direction because right now we're stalled out on this whole scientific theory or scientific method kind of conversation. And it would be great if we could get off of it. So Jared is just trying to get us on track to where we can move past this particular point because we get that both of you disagree on this and it's kind of a fundamental disagreement. But I mean, we have to come to some kind of middle ground area here to where we can further the conversation. Otherwise, it's going to be a 2-hour debate over the scientific.
Right. Let me say it like this way then quickly, right? So I kind of understand what you're saying, Spurs. So from my point of view, right, once I got my hypothesis, I would then do my research, right? And if that research didn't comport to my hypothesis, I would develop a new hypothesis and test for that. Okay, I wouldn't just stick with that hypothesis or assumption or whatever. I would look at things from every angle, which is the nature of science. But I agree with Godless Engineer that we should just move on past this point.
Yeah, I'm fine with
about
that.
the actual, the sticking points of the scientific method. Now, do you have any physical hard evidence that I can look at to suggest that the Earth is flat?
What in terms of what?
An observation that I can go and do, a mathematical equation that I can work to comport with reality, an explanation of what gravity is if it's not a downward accelerating force. Is there something that I can go? If I was researching this from scratch, where would you tell me to go to get the evidence to say that the Earth is flat?
Well, now you're asking a question. It would require research.
Yeah.
I can't answer that for you. I can't tell you where we live or the shape of the Earth. This is part of the problem. People simply don't want to work things out for themselves. Yes, I've had to do it for myself, and I understand using logic and common sense that the Earth is not curving. So if the Earth is not curving, what shape can it be? The only logical conclusion
when you say the Earth is not curving, right? That is a big point, right? Okay, so what hard evidence can you give me that the Earth is not curving?
Have you seen the world record photograph?
Yes.
Yeah, well, that can only be observed 2 times a year, I think it is. And that is because the atmosphere is causing it to be, there's an open window, you can see further. On certain days, you cannot see that mountain or as far as that. So for me, that is proof that the Earth has to be flat.
Well, can we not use the word proof there? Because one major thing about science, and I really would like people to quote me on this, is that science doesn't prove things, right? We have evidence that suggests.
Yeah. Sorry.
So,
Well, this isn't science. This is what we call self-evident. If something is self-evident to you, science is not required. That's how we can know things without science. You see?
okay, so I would fundamentally disagree that we can know things without science, but that's just how my mind works. I would always need to dig deeper into the meaning and explanation of something.
Well, you know your name. You know your
Yes.
name. But did you know your name through science?
I know that my parents chose that name, and I know that they used chemical connections in their brain.
Yeah, but you just said you can't know something without science. You know your name without science, right?
Yeah, but then that isn't where I would stop. If I wanted to know where my name came from, I would then research why my parents chose that name, what particular reasons and experiences they had in their lives to make that name. I would then maybe research the chemical reactions and thought processes of the brain behind coming up with a decision like that. I wouldn't just stop at "that's my name." I would look at why is that
I agree.
my name.
We're saying that we can know things without science. You know Godless's name without science, yeah? Because he told you. So you now know this. You didn't know it before.
You told me over the internet.
You now know it, right?
I get your point, but
yeah.
There
so
is,
what the point is that science is introduced because it's required. Why? Because there's phenomenon that we just simply cannot explain with our senses. It's not self-evident to everybody.
Yeah.
Sunsets are not self-evident to everybody. Most people think it's going down when in reality it's going away. Now, how do we test this? We need science.
See, didn't you just then make an assumption? Which is what you've been accusing me of doing. So you just made the assumption of, in reality, it's moving away. That's exactly what you've told me I shouldn't be doing.
Yeah, but we've tested this. Have you not seen Rob Skiba's video where he tests the sunsets with the lens? So the atmosphere acts like a lens. We know why the sun goes down. That's the point.
Well,
we've researched this.
Yeah, but
we have
his research was flawed quite fundamentally.
Hold on. Again, you just call wrong because we have an experiment. Again, this is so unfair on your side.
No. Well, let me explain why I've said that. Because I've seen the video, yes, and I noticed about 5 variables that could have been eliminated pretty easily to get a more accurate, idea of what was going on. The camera height could have been higher. There wasn't solar lenses uses. The math really wasn't quite right. But there was a lot of things that weren't done. Now, all right, that is one explanation. But what I would do, please let me finish. One sec. Right, that is the conclusion that Rob Skiba came from the information that he had based on the experiment he did. But I wouldn't just accept that, just in the same way that I wouldn't just accept something else. I would go, well, why is that? And look into it more. And I would try to eliminate a lot of things like glare of the lens and atmospheric refraction, etc. And then I would repeat the experiment and I would compare the results based on what was happening when the variables were there and weren't. And I do not feel that Rob Skiba sufficiently removed enough variables to make a determination of what was happening.
Yeah, yes and no, maybe. But what happened was, like I say, there was a question. Sunsets. Okay, yes. So research was done. What research? That means the atmosphere, the horizon. So what Rob Skiba found out through research, you see, he found out that the atmosphere acts like a lens. Okay, so once he knew this, once he gathered more information, he could now form or construct a hypothesis with this limited information. So what he did, he said, okay, if the atmosphere acts like a lens, can I replicate that? Can I test this with an experiment? And lo and behold, you saw a experiment that replicates exactly what we see. Now, if he's wrong, can you provide a working demonstrable working test to show how sunsets work on a ball?
Yes, you would do exactly the same observation whilst removing the variables which weren't removed. For instance, Red's Rhetoric has done an observation of the sun 24 hours throughout the day with a solar filter zoomed in maximum in the frame, and it shows that the sun doesn't change, it doesn't shrink and
No,
disappear.
I'm talking
like
about an
that. So,
experiment. An experiment.
well,
Do you have an experiment?
okay, well, that is an
Not an
experiment to
observation.
determine the angular size.
No,
And
that is research. That is observations. We want an experiment, not another observation, and not more research. We
and
pass.
how is that different to Rob Skiba's observations and experiments?
No, because Rob Skiba didn't make an observation. He tested his hypothesis with an experiment. That's something that
What was the? Yeah, but the whole thing about the atmosphere being a lens, he was so wrong about that with the way that the angles were. I mean, surely you've seen all the videos explaining how wrong that was, and this is this is my point.
I haven't seen one debunking video on that. What I've seen.
Okay. Well, let me stop you there. Let me stop you there, Spurs.
Hey, guys, come on now.
Let me stop you there. And that's the thing. You haven't looked further into it. You've gone, this is what Rob Skiba says, and I've seen one debunked video. I've seen a whole bunch of debunked videos about that experiment that Rob Skiba's done.
Yeah, but the beauty with Rob Skiba, anybody can replicate.
I haven't. Please let me finish
my
point.
Sorry.
Right. My point here is that Rob Skiba did an experiment that was flawed. In the same way that Robotham did a flawed experiment for the original Bedford level experiment, because he didn't do enough to remove atmospheric refraction and things like that. So the results and the conclusions that were gathered were skewed because it was based on a flawed beginning. Now, if you do an experiment, you need to remove all the flaws and the variables and stuff. But what Rob Skiba did was he went with, oh, that's what it is. That's my experiment. That's the conclusion. There was nothing to improve what was happening. I don't think we can use that as an example.
Okay. How would you have done this test?
I would have done it from multiple different locations. I would have had
No. I'm talking about the experiment. Rob Skiba produced an experiment to show the people, look outside, and you can replicate this at home. Now I'm asking you, where did he go wrong in this order? Question, he researched, he had a hypothesis, he did an experiment.
Explain the experiment to me, Spurs.
What, Rob Skiba? You haven't seen what he's done?
No, I just want to hear you explain the experiment to me.
So there was a question that was asked. Sunsets. Is the sun setting or is the sun moving away? That's the claim. That's what you just said. I made that claim, right? Right. So we asked that question. So we researched, and what we found out, we've gathered a little bit more information, and we found the atmosphere acts like a lens. So
that was my question. Where's explain to me where explain. Yeah, but I want to hear it from you, because I've explained to you my issues with it, but I want to hear you explain to me what the experiment. Spurs, please just right. I'm going to ask you a direct question, a direct thing, and I just want you to please do what I ask. Okay.
Okay.
You say Rob Skiba. Well, no, Rob Skiba did this experiment to show that the atmosphere acts as a lens. Please, could you explain to me that experiment?
I didn't say that. Don't put words into my mouth. I said after research, he's found out that the atmosphere acts like a lens.
What research?
Well, look on the video. He's speaking to a scientist, and the guy says the atmosphere acts like a lens.
That's research, is it?
Well, that would have been one part of the research. Yeah, I'm sure there was more, but he brought that forward.
Spurs, I'm sorry, but you're imposing a hell of a lot of double standards here.
Why?
Because you are just letting Rob Skiba do experiments based on observations and people saying this and that, but I'm not allowed to do anything approaching anywhere near the same.
You can do that.
I'm still waiting for you to answer the basic question of what is your hard evidence that we don't live on a globe? You say there's no curvature, but there absolutely is curvature that has been observed many, many times. So I'm waiting for you to prove to me that there isn't curvature.
But I've just asked you, how would you like me to do that? I've said to you, the sunsets are proven to...
That doesn't... Right, I'm sorry. Sunsets don't answer the question of, is the Earth curving? What observation can you give me to prove that the Earth isn't curving? The sun setting doesn't prove the Earth isn't curving.
So what kind of evidence to prove that the Earth I mean, again, water.
You're the one making the claim the Earth isn't curving.
Yeah, so we observe flat. You observe a flat. I observe flat. What reason do we, me and you, both of us, what reason do we
I don't
have?
observe flat.
Yeah, what reason do we have to believe or think the Earth is curving?
Because it's quite clear when you actually observe things.
Well, then show me why you believe it, and then we can see screen share something why you believe the Earth. I mean, we observe flat, so I don't see any reason for you to think.
You keep saying we observe flat, but I can. There's a whole bunch of reasons why I say we don't observe flat. I'm a sailor. I was in the Royal Navy for nearly a decade. I spent a hell of a lot of time at sea, and I can tell you right now that shit ain't flat.
What's not flat? Did you document what you saw? Did you document the curvature?
Well, the machinery that I was working on that takes into account the curvature of the Earth certainly would. That's for sure.
What takes into account the curvature?
The navigation systems of the ship, the weapon systems of the ship, the communication systems of the ship.
Why would that be necessary?
Otherwise, they wouldn't know where they were going.
Yeah, but why would they take into account the curvature to know where they're going? They're just going straight forward.
Would they need to know where things are? And
are they going downhill or something?
No, they are going around
straight ahead. So why would they need to take into account the curvature if they're going straight ahead? Straight ahead, Sully boys, full steam ahead.
Well, you're going to want to know what's there. So your navigation systems are going to take into account
the curvature. Why? If you're not going downhill, if there's no descent, why would you need to know there's curvature?
That's a very backwards question. You can argue that there is a point where things disappear. So you still need to know what is beyond that point. Now, obviously, way in the past, we talk about the, seeing ships disappear bottom up or appear with just the mast first or whatever. Mm-hmm. But nowadays, we can actually look and use our technology to see further than the horizon. And the technology that does that takes into account the curvature of the Earth, using other things to help see further. So
I think I've been very supportive and, not kind of denying everything. I've looked at all of your experiments. I've asked you, do you think it's fair? And, I don't think I've said anything fallacious here. I've said what we observe. I and you, we both observed flat. You're saying...
No, I disagree. Because, for instance, the observations that Miles Davis has done of the mountains show that the Earth isn't flat because those mountains are way lower than they should be.
But is there a chance? But again, is there a chance it's an optical phenomena? Is that possible?
If you can tell me an optical phenomenon that can do that can literally make a mountain disappear that much, then I'd love to hear it. But currently, there isn't one. And
let me tell you.
I haven't finished. And what we know about the way that light interacts with our atmosphere, what we know about refraction, and what we know about the distance and size of the Earth comports to the observations that were made. So, just looking, I could stand on that hill where he took that photograph and just look and go, well, that mountain's lower than it should be. Mm-hmm. So... you're not going to hear any disagreements from me, but what you're going to hear is can we be sure it's not optical? Can we verify the question that you're asking right now? Yes.
But you say yes, you say so.
We know how light works. Unless there is some property of light that you can tell me that I don't know about.
Oh, is there a law for light or something?
There's many, yes.
Like what?
Well, like the wavelengths of light and the way that the different wavelengths will refract within our atmosphere.
These are laws or theories?
No, they're not theories. These are things that have been proven. We can isolate a single photon, so we know exactly what light is. That's how femtophotography works.
Yeah, we obviously know, we can, probably manipulate light and work with light, but, I don't think we have a law for light. We don't exactly know how it exactly works, because when we're looking at things
we absolutely do. We know exactly how light works. It travels at 180,000 miles per second, and based on the color of the light has a particular wavelength. We know how light propagates. We know how light is created. We know how photons interact with other things. We know how quantum superposition, affects things based on observations. So for you to say that, I would completely disagree, because there's been plenty of experiments and things done to show that we do know exactly how light works. So much so that an entire area of photography has developed around looking at single photons and things. So
yeah, I mean, again, like I said, that's of course,
Sorry.
technology. We're able to work with it and things like that. But things like the ships disappearing bottom first. You can't explain that.
I can.
Well, your explanation is curvature, but again, we know the Earth is not curving. So if you're
sorry. Again, the Earth isn't curving, but that's the thing, right? Let me point out one big thing here, Spurs, and it's not just you; it's every single flat earther. I'm going to do an impression of a flat earther right now. Okay? Well, no, it's definitely not that. I don't know. I don't know what it is, but it's definitely not that. That's what you're saying to me. That's what every flat earther says to me. All right, you can't say it's definitely not something unless you can give me hard evidence to show that it's something else. But every time you give me evidence, I throw it away.
Sorry, if I could interject, Snell's law is a law concerning light and how it refracts in different mediums and whatnot. So that's a pretty good one to throw out there.
The blood moon, for instance, is a great explanation of how our understanding of light works, because we could explain the color of the light by the refraction of the sun going off our atmosphere and scattering the red more than the others. So we know how light works. There is laws, there's maths, and things that back up that the maths comports to reality. We know how atmosphere and the density of atmosphere will change the way that light is bending. So for you to keep saying, can you prove, is it not an optical phenomenon? I can tell you that it's not an optical phenomenon because I know how light and the interaction between light and the atmosphere works.
Okay, so why should I believe you?
Because you can go and test these things for yourself.
How? What can I test? How? What should I test? What to, like Rob Skiba, he has an experiment, a test that anybody can test anytime, anywhere around the world.
You haven't explained to me what.
So I'm asking you, why should I trust you? Why should I believe you? What test can I do to verify what you're saying to me right now?
Well, you can go and build a receiver for light waves yourself from scratch if you feel like it.
Is that feasible?
You'd have to.
Feasible?
That's feasible. It's feasible. You'd have to go and get a degree in electrical engineering. You'd have to source the raw materials. You'd have to make the transistors, the capacitors, the circuit boards. You would have to create a functioning laser receiver. You would have to do all these things yourself. They are possible because other people have done it. Just because you don't have the skills to do it doesn't mean that it can't be done. It's the same.
But then I would say that's not science, because science is for everybody.
Absolutely 100% not.
Children do science. Students do science. Everybody does science. So if you're trying to say that you have to jump through hoops to do science, I think most people don't want to know. They want to be able to test.
But that's not what science is. Sometimes to be able to test, you need to be able to understand what is happening and develop the correct equipment to perform that test. Just because you can't do it with what's in your kitchen cupboard doesn't mean it's not science. You can't, from the materials around your house, you can't go and build a LIGO detector. Doesn't mean that the LIGO detector isn't science. That's not how science works in any way, shape, or form.
Well, science, as I understand it, is something that is repeatable, testable, and demonstratable.
And if you go and do those things, it most certainly is repeatable, demonstratable. You just need to gain the skills and knowledge and understanding to be able to perform those repeatable experiments.
Or we could just see.
But then what are you going to know? I'm sorry, but that's the problem here, is that, I'm just going to go with what I can see. But you need to go deeper. And sometimes to go deeper, you need to have a better understanding.
Yeah, but if you had done these tests to show people, I think, you wouldn't have such a hard time proving that you live on a globe that's spinning. It's the fact that you're not able to demonstrate. And that's where I say the pseudoscience. This is why I
demonstrate it. In fact, one of the projects that I'm working on is building a mechanical gyroscope from scratch that will show a precession of 15 degrees, per hour. I'm doing a bunch of stuff at home that I will plan to put on my channel. And the reason I'm doing this is to show that a lot of things you can do.
If I could interject here, as far as the science that you can do, I say that in quotes, by the way. So Bob from Globebusters, he has a ring laser gyroscope in which he tested and showed a 15 degree per hour turn of the Earth or drift. The gyroscope registered a 15 degree per hour drift.
No, that's not true.
No, it is.
Yeah,
He
it is.
said that they registered that. So
Yeah, that could
I
have
don't
been
know.
the ether. We're not sure exactly what was.
The ether does not exist. It's been
except-
disproven by science.
Here's the problem with that claim, Chemo,
No,
is Bob himself.
Bob came out on
hang-
Globebusters the last
hang
show and
on.
explained- Well, he
Hang
explained.
on.
All
I'm-
he's not
Let
lying.
Jared just say what he
Jared.
wants to say, and then we get back to it.
So,
It's fine.
so why can you interrupt everyone else, but we're not allowed to correct you, Chemo? Keep that in mind. But here's the thing to remember. When Bob released the information unknowingly while he was talking to someone at an event that a documentary crew was filming at, he actually explained the extra steps they went to try to isolate it. And no matter what they did, no matter how they tried to isolate it, they still got the 15 degree per hour drift from an apparatus that was not moving on the workbench.
Well,
And
okay,
here's the beautiful thing about a ring laser gyro. You don't need to go with the $20,000 one that they had available to them. With fiber optic cable and a screen and a couple other middling parts that you can get your hands on yourself, you can build one and get the same results.
Okay, but you obviously ring laser gyro. It's not a mechanical thing like a basic mechanical gyroscope. And the thing is that a basic mechanical gyroscope, if accurate enough, will still register that 15 degree per hour shift. So there's no way that if a mechanical gyroscope is registering it, it's the ether or anything else. Can we agree on that?
it detected something. No.
If a mechanical gyroscope registers a 15 degree per hour shift, we can agree that is not anything other than what's happening on the ground, right? A mechanical gyroscope. That's not going to measure anything in the sky. That's just attached to the ground. So if that registers a 15 degree per hour shift, there is no other explanation for that. Even if the ether existed, it wouldn't affect the mechanical gyroscope in that fashion.
Well, if this is an experiment that you have, like I say,
there's plenty on YouTube that I am basing my experiment on. I've seen other people do it, and I thought, well, you know what, that's something that I can do myself. So I'm getting the raw parts. I've contacted someone so that I can use their machining shop to create what I need to do it. And again, this is something that you can do yourself as a flat earther. If you really want to do research from an intellectually honest standpoint.
The test that I would be satisfied. Again, I wouldn't be satisfied with this test. If you're going to do a test, the test that would be satisfactory would be to fire a laser from the equator, one from the North Pole, and have it return back to the Earth, and we should get a slightly different reading. If the Earth is actually turning...
Sorry, where are you firing these lasers to?
If the Earth is actually turning, the laser at the equator, when it returns to the Earth, should be a lot slower than the one from the north, the northern area.
Where are you firing these lasers to? You're saying return to the Earth. What are they bouncing off?
Off the ionosphere.
Right.
So if you're able to perform this, I wouldn't waste your time with gyroscopes. I would try to perform the laser test, where you can. Because this is ultimate proof. This is absolute proof. If you would get the reading from the equator a lot slower than the northern area, the North Pole, this would absolutely prove, of course, wouldn't it? It would show that the Earth is turning.
Okay, so have you done this? Have you attempted to do that? Have you?
No, I don't believe the Earth
to do it.
No, I don't believe the Earth
there you go, Spurs. I don't believe the Earth is spinning, so I'm not going to do the experiment. And I'm talking. I'm talking. You will shush, okay? There is the problem. You don't want to find another answer. You've literally just told me No, I don't believe the Earth's spinning, so I'm not
Right.
going to do that experiment. That is intellectually dishonest and
No.
100% not how science works.
No,
When
not
I
at
do
all.
something, I would not go into it with the mindset of, I believe the Earth is spinning, I don't believe the Earth is spinning. I would go into it with the mindset of, what will this experiment show me? But you don't give a fuck what the experiment is going to show
No,
you,
that's the
because
Okay,
you
hold on.
don't-
If I could get a clarification.
Calm down. All I'm
Hold on.
saying
If
to
I
you,
could get a clarification, can I get a clarification on something?
yeah,
Okay, so Spurs, what you basically just said was, hey, here's an experiment that you can do, but I'm not going to do it because I already know the results of it, but I have not done it. Is that correct?
yeah, I'm saying that I haven't done this test, but what I'm saying is, if you believe the Earth is turning, I wouldn't waste your time with ring laser gyros and things like this. This you want to see if the Earth is actually turning. So you need something like lasers positioned at the equator and lasers positioned
so
at
if that's the way that you think you could prove it or disprove it, why haven't you attempted to do it?
I've just thought it just now, actually. I could do it, yeah. It's a
Completely
possibility.
wrong
But,
about how lasers work and stuff.
The reason why I
Anyway,
said it is because I'm saying that I don't want you to do a test and then you come back and they were not satisfied. You need to do things where flat earthers put forward and say, well, if you prove it this way, like for example, Anthony, I don't know if you know Sleeping Warrior. He had, so he had an idea that to prove,
I don't think he's ever had an idea in his life, but carry on.
To prove the southern point, you would need to satisfy Anthony. Okay, you would need 3 observers in the south, one from South Africa, one from South America, and one from Australia, simultaneously observing this southern point. Okay, this would satisfy him that there is a southern point in the south area, southern. You understand what I mean. And this would satisfy him. Right. He's not going to do this.
Why not? Why not though?
No, because if you believe there is a south pole or southern point, then you should be able to provide 3 observers, one in those areas, like I just said.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure that's been done, to be honest. But my point here is, if that is what would satisfy Sleeping Warrior one way or the other, why hasn't he arranged for that to happen? Why is the onus on us?
Why would he do that though? Why would he chase Santa Claus?
Well, because the question of whether the Earth is flat or not seems to be in discussion.
And he didn't say. That.
Wait! Don't interrupt me. Don't interrupt me. All right.
Sorry.
Right. The question on about all these discussions is the Earth flat? Yes or no? And if that is something that in his mind will satisfy that question as to whether there is a south, etc., why has he not arranged for that to be done? That is the problem. He doesn't want to know. Because otherwise, we did try. We asked Wolfie if he would participate, and we put it out there. Ball Earth has said, Globe Earth has said, yeah, we would get this done. Hasn't been done. It will never be done. You will never find 3 observers in the south able to see the southern cross at the same time. Just like you won't be able to put a laser at the equator, a laser at the north, and fire them and Bear
get
me
back.
Just 1 second. Right, guys in the chat, how many of you there are in the southern hemisphere and would be willing to help us do this?
Because you would convince at least 30-40% of the flat earth community if you were able to prove the southern point with 3 not 2 observers, has to be 3 from Australia, South America, and South Africa.
Right,
they're in the south.
I'll do that. I will get that done. All right, give me a week.
You heard it here. You've heard it here. Fight thinks that he will be able to get 3 observers and shut the flat Earth down overnight. I think this will shut down the flat Earth down overnight. So you can say, look,
if I did that and I got 3 people to observe the southern, the Sigma Octantis from
southern point,
from those 3 places. If I did
at the same time, exactly the same time, synchronicity.
Wait, are they all going to be at night at that point? Let me just.
It doesn't matter. We want synchronicity. You're
going to need to all be night to be able to see the stars. I'm just thinking there is going to be a point. There is going to be a point where one will be in dawn and one. Yeah, so that should be possible. right? If I can get if I can get 3 people from those positions around the world,
Yes.
will you admit the Earth is a globe?
No, you will have Anthony Sleeping Warrior, a globe earther.
Okay, well, we all know that Anthony's a liar anyway, and that won't happen. But I can get that done because I know for a fact I've got people that watch me in Australia, South Africa, and South America. So
Well, again, we've been asking this
I'll put a call out to my subs.
We've been into this for 5-6 years now. We've been asking for this observation to verify this southern point that
You're telling me for 5-6 years you haven't been able to organize it yourself. You telling me out for 5-6 years you haven't found?
Again, we're not going to chase things. It's not our claim, fight. We've never claimed there is a southern point.
But there's the thing. On our side, we would try to prove both. We would go, well, if that is what the flat earthers are claiming, right, well, let's do an experiment to see if that's true. And that Red's rhetoric has been doing that for since he started his channel. He's been doing what the flat earthers have wanted to be done. But there is no flat earthers. There's no flat earthers that will try and disprove the flat earth.
Spurs, man, you gotta let Fight the Flat Earth finish. Okay, he was talking.
There is no flat earthers that will try and disprove the flat earth or work from a neutral perspective. Flat earthers will go into it I think the Earth's flat, so fuck the rest. And
no, but I want to show respect to Red because he's one of the few globe earthers who are active. Because what we're trying to say is this is the first time in my reality or in my day and age where the Earth has actually been researched. We've just been told what the shape of the Earth is. It's never been researched. So Red's out there trying to, counter the flat Earth, but it's going to be with a great difficulty, of course. But yeah, he's shown that something is in the sky, like the ISS. But how we understand it, there's nobody actually in the ISS, Red, if you're listening. Maybe there's something up there, but people inside, that's very, very questionable. And that you would have to Red. This is just a Red. You would have to catch the people doing a spacewalk, or when they're fixing something. If you could actually,
you want to film them from Earth doing a spacewalk,
something like that, to prove that they're actually.
Well, we would need to really advance our optical technology to be able to do that. You understand that, right? That they're
we have telescopes that can see Jupiter. Are you telling me we can't see the ISS just above our heads? Get real. Okay, so look, it's not that we deny everything. We don't deny everything. We just ask you to verify everything.
But there's my problem, Spurs, is that we shouldn't have to verify everything because we're not the ones making the claim that the Earth isn't a globe.
Well, it's not a globe. Why are you saying it's a globe? What makes you think it's a globe? This is the problem now.
The evidence I presented you with tonight, the millions and millions and millions of pictures and videos from space from not only professional organizations, government agencies, but amateurs as well. The comporting evidence to back up that all those satellites are real. All the experiments that I've done to confirm that gravity is a thing, and if gravity is real, then the Earth is a globe. Because the flat Earth can't be a thing if gravity is real. All of the evidence that I can ever find, and I've given you a whole bunch tonight, which you've just hand-waved dismissed. So
no, not at all. Don't say such things. I've said to you things like Cavendish. It needs to be improved. You need to find a better.
Why hasn't a flat Earther tried to improve it? Again,
why would they? Again,
because the flat Earthers are the ones that need to prove that either way.
If I said to you, pink unicorns exist, would you try to prove they do?
If it was a claim and I was deciding to try and prove it one way or another, I would research into whether pink unicorns were real. If that was an actual question that people were asking.
Be serious. Would you waste your time researching pink unicorns based on what you know?
If there was a claim that was a reality and there was a scientific research being done into it, then yes, from a intellectually honest standpoint, I would have to research if pink unicorns were a thing. Okay, but you're making random things that aren't really the point here. The question on all our lips is the Earth flat or not?
You want us to research the southern point.
Yes.
You want us to research gravity.
Yes.
And to us, but again, to us, it's self-evident. We don't need science to prove why things are disappearing. We understand perspective. We understand.
No, you don't understand perspective, not in the slightest. And you've had this conversation with Reds, I know. So
yeah, well,
right now, what is the law of perspective?
No, I'm just saying that we understand how things are disappearing.
No, that's not what perspective is.
Well, again, things are disappearing because of the horizon, because of this layer of atmosphere.
And it,
they are
and
causing
again,
things.
Spurs, you're doing the same thing that you keep telling me not to do. You are making assumptions. You are saying this is why it's happening. This is why it's happening. It's self-evident. I can see it. To me, it's self-evident the other way. All right, but I would still research either way.
I didn't say perspective to get into a new,
You're just missing what I've just said. But anyway,
No, I understand what you're saying. That's why I'm kind of saying it's this thing, because I actually, this is not, something that I want to discuss right now because it's very late here. It's 2:00 in the morning, and
we're big boys.
we could kind of, wrap it up in some way. So, because I think it's been good. I think we've come to a good understanding that, we need to improve the tests,
yeah,
the science.
And I would say to you that that's how science works. Tests are improved all the time. Methods are reevaluated and reassessed.
Right.
Things are, for instance, the Cavendish, it's redone all the time.
But not under the right conditions, though, Fight. That's the problem.
Well, see, I would disagree because the conditions have been changed along the way. But then that's my point. If you're saying it's not the right conditions, then you need to do it within the right conditions yourself. Otherwise, you can't say, well, you haven't done it like that, so it's not right.
Why didn't you just do it in the right conditions in the first place?
Well, because...
why would you allow atmosphere or wind to affect this important? You're proving gravity, not just any old thing here. This has to be so rigorous.
Yeah, and now they tend to be in enclosed system. In enclosed systems. I'm not sure if there's vacuums or stuff, but you do know what the Cavendish experiment is and the way it works. The force of mass attracting mass is so minute. You have to exaggerate it massively to be able to measure it.
Okay, listen, I cannot have you talking about rigorous experiments when you thought of an experiment, virtually ran it in your mind, and just unanimously stated that it disproved the Earth rotated. You cannot talk about having rigorous tests in the same breath.
Godless, do you disagree with that test, the laser test? Do you think that's a bad test?
I don't know, because you made it up off the top of your head, and so I didn't make it up.
I would figure out where we live, right? So if if we are thinking, how can we figure out if the Earth is actually spinning? Now, don't you think firing a laser from the equator and then firing one from the North Pole would prove, without any shadow of any doubt, that the Earth is rotating?
The setup as proposed is designed to fail. There is no reflected medium up there to force the beam to have a return path.
Well,
there is
there is going to be some reflection, but the dissipation of the laser would be so extreme.
So you can shoot a laser and hit the reflectors that are left on the moon by the Apollo moon missions, and they will reflect back, and you can measure the distance to the moon, and then I'm sure that you could augment that in a way that you could determine how fast the Earth is rotating, or at the very least how fast the moon is orbiting.
No. All you need to do is send up 2 satellites, right? One above the North Pole, straight up at, say, 50,000 feet or higher. Whatever you need to put the satellite at. Then you put another satellite with reflectors at the equator, and then you fire your laser at these satellites.
Okay, right. What you're proposing here basically is you want to see a difference in the with the light returning, yeah. So at the equator, you would see it would have moved slightly when the beam returns, yeah. Now,
hold on. I know you're going to say it doesn't. Then send the satellite further. Send it so it's 1 day.
Oh no! I wasn't gonna say that. I was gonna talk about things that we already have that kind of do that. I mean, for instance, the GPS system works based on where the things are and how fast they are traveling. You have to have at least kind of 3 satellites in communication at different points in the sky. and that whole system wouldn't work if the Earth wasn't spinning. And the data that you would receive from those satellites that are already in place would show you. I mean, they have atomic clocks in them that can track the difference in time because of the velocity and everything. So what you're proposing is already kind of in place with systems that are there to help us navigate the planet.
So use it then to show that the Earth is rotating. Let's see.
You can show that if you just gather the data from GPS systems, it would show you that.
No, we want an experiment. Has to be an experiment specifically for this.
Okay, well then, as flat earthers, you need to arrange that experiment, or
Why
at least...
are you saying that? What, I don't understand. Why? Prove the flat Earth to me. Prove the dome. Prove the wall.
Okay, so the reason why we say this, if I can interject here, is that the current consensus among everybody else is that the Earth rotates once in a 24-hour day, right? And we orbit around the sun and all that good stuff. Yeah. That is the current consensus. If you're going to challenge it, that's fine, but you have to come up with the experiments that disprove it. You have to provide the information that disproves it. We don't have the burden of proof. You do, and this entire stream, you've done nothing but shift the burden of proof and move the goalposts and all of those logically fallacious things. So that is why.
That's how burden of proof works. I mean, I know in a way it might sound like just kind of going, we don't need to prove anything. But again, I can present proofs of the Earth is spinning. It's just not ones that you are going to accept.
Yeah, it has to be satisfactory. I mean,
it has to be satisfactory to you. It's been satisfactory to everybody else, but not to you. No, everybody else can interpret the data.
Don't say again. You're saying everybody else. They do not know about this experiment. Everybody else has been told. If everybody else knew about this experiment, they would question it.
No, that's everybody else has access
They do not know about this experiment. Just you and a few other people who have looked into this experiment. But most people
this experiment that you've just come up with.
Sorry?
The experiment that you've just come up with, you mean?
No, Cavendish.
Oh, Nobody. Cavendish. Yeah. Everybody who actually has looked into mass attracting mass knows what Cavendish is.
Right, but they don't know that the parameters are not correct. They just think, oh, they must know what they're talking about. So we've exposed that actually you don't know what you're talking about, and it should have been done in the correct environment.
Right, well, if you think that's the correct environment, then you are the ones with the claim that everything else is wrong. You are the ones that need to do that experiment in what you consider the correct environment and see what the results are.
No, again, if you want to satisfy...
Spurs, you're shifting burden of proof again. I'm sorry, but I'm not going to let you just keep shifting the burden of proof. Yes, you are. You are making a claim that the Earth isn't spinning and the Earth isn't a globe. You are the one making that claim. We are not the ones claiming it. We are the ones that have the scientific consensus and have the evidence and the reason-based.
So we can prove that the Earth is not a globe through observations.
But that doesn't prove anything because we've got observations that prove that it is a globe and way more than you.
Can I finish? So if you tell us the size of the Earth, you give us a number, you say it's 24,000 kilometers all the way around. So we're like, okay, fine. So that would mean that it's 8 inches per square mile, and the Earth
not all the way.
No, hold on, let me finish, whether I'm wrong or right. Let me finish. So so it doesn't matter what the number is. The number, if you tell us 24 or 25,000 miles all the way around, people will say, okay, fine. If that's the number, then according to those numbers, I should be able to only see so far or yay far or whatever. So what people have found is that when they go out with their cameras, they've looked at the numbers and they can see a lot further than what you say we can see. And that's the problem. That's what you're up against.
And there is where I disagree with you. For instance, the way that all flat earthers seem to misunderstand how the curve calculator works. When you actually do the correct calculations and take into account everything that's happening, it always comports to the model that we have. The claim that, we can see further than we should be able to, or, that's a problem with your model. That's ridiculous because these things have been created based around our understanding of the world that we live in. They aren't just someone's random thought and write down a random number. This is what we have found out by observing what is going on.
No, but again, you said I'm not listening to you. I'm saying if you tell the people the Earth is 25,000, what does that mean? If you say 25,000 miles all the way around, can the people now start to do calculations on what we should and shouldn't see? Is that possible?
Yeah.
Okay. So if we can see further than what, say, a 6 foot man can see further than what you say we can see, well, then the numbers are wrong.
Well, then you have, but that's where you just go, oh, well, it's wrong. So, well, but that's when you're not thinking about atmospheric refraction and stuff. And when you take these things into account and do the maths that take those things into account, you can never see further than you should, ever.
Why is the world record the world record? Because you can see a lot further than you're supposed to.
Because of the particular atmospheric refraction on that day. As the photographer has quite clearly stated, you even stated that only happens once, maybe twice a year, and that was a particularly good day for refraction. And when you do the math, I don't have it with me right now, but I've done the math for that. What you see is that it is bringing up the curve by less than 1.2 degrees at the extreme. So if you need to tell me that light doesn't have the ability, to bend 1.2 degrees in extreme refraction circumstances.
Looking at a 20-mile mirage.
Yes, and as I've explained to you, I've done the math. And when you do the math based on how far that photo shows and what the Earth is, it shows like less than a 1.2 degree discrepancy, which can be more than explained by atmospheric refraction.
Well, like I say, we're not satisfied with that answer.
Well, that's your problem. So then you need to go and find a satisfactory answer. You can't just say, that's not good enough. I'm sorry, Spurs. Stop shifting the burden of proof.
No, we're not shifting. We're saying that we have the proof. We have observations that
Observations don't prove anything. I have observations, and I have way more than you.
No, you have calculations.
I have observations, and I've explained about 1,000 of them to you.
Yeah, well, equations and calculations.
Okay, Spurs, listen to my words. Observations. I have plenty of observations, but I also have calculations and physics and experiments that back up those observations. You don't.
Well,
sorry, Godless.
Go ahead, Godless.
Sorry, you're crapping on mathematics a lot, and I mean, being an avid person in mathematics, I do have to take issue with that because, like, for instance, let's just take speed. I mean, are you saying that you don't trust our speed calculations, like any speed calculations, like the calculations you do when a ball's pitched or the radar gun, on the highway? Do you not trust basic calculations of speed, like when we're trying to determine if train A leaves from city B and train C leaves from city D at so-and-so speeds, how long will it take for them to crash? Like, do you not trust those particular things, like, at all? Like, you just don't think math at all can tell us anything about reality?
Of course we need math, calculations. Of course it has applications, okay? But remember, it depends what you're applying the maths to. So if you're applying maths to tangible objects, where things are, well, of course, sure. But where math fails is when you try to calculate or measure things like the sun, the moon, stars, so on and so forth. You're making assumptions.
Okay, but in the calculations that I explained to you about that photograph, I didn't use any of those things.
I
didn't use the distances. I used tangible, observable.
No, I know, but I'm just saying to Godless here, there's nothing wrong with. It's not like flat earthers don't like numbers or maths or something like this. It's the way you're using these numbers. I mean, we prefer you to go from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, measure something from A to B. Like you said, 69 miles, 1 mile, 2 miles, 3 miles. You haven't calculated 69 miles. You've measured the distance, and we're satisfied with that. The sun, where is it? The moon, where is it? Stars, where are they? We don't.
Okay. So using basic speed stuff, we can determine that the moon is like 238,000 miles away from us. This is knowing the speed of light and all that other stuff. Are you saying that you disagree with the use of math when it disproves your ideas, but you're fine with math, or I guess technically just measuring shit when it can confirm your own ideas?
No, not at all. Like I said, if you knew where the sun, let's say you actually went to the moon landers were real, you actually landed on the moon. So we would know for sure where the moon exactly is. So obviously, when we measure or take measurements to the moon, we would, you would know these things, but we don't know where they are. So again, I can't see the argument. If we don't know where something is, we guess.
But that's the thing. Using the basic maths that works, we can easily calculate where those things are. I can look at the lights in the sky, for instance, Venus, and use the observations of parallax and knowing what speeds and stuff are to calculate how far away from us it is, and then using that, I can use maths that's been proven, trigonometry, to easily calculate the distance to the sun. This isn't just random things that people have made up. This is observations that people have done, and then done maths based on those observations that comport with reality. I mean, it's kind of basic, the whole calculating the distance to the sun using Venus, right? Everyone's done that. I'm not being silly here. Everyone's done that.
For me, maths are useful. It's applied in particular areas. You cannot apply
just not where you want it.
No, you can't apply it to something where, like, for example, you cannot triangulate a rainbow. Why? Because you don't know where it is. Where is its precise location? You will just never be able to work out where these things are. The same thing is with the sun, the moon, and the stars, and anything that's up there.
It's not the same, though. A rainbow is very different to something else. A rainbow is refraction of light, in the light interacting with the droplets in the atmosphere and stuff. Whereas the moon and the sun and Venus and things are tangible physical objects that we have easily calculated the distance to hundreds and hundreds of years before we had this technology, just by observing them.
Okay, fine. You've calculated. If you just measure,
we've gone to the moon and confirmed it.
Yeah, just measure the actual distance, and I think
they did when they flew to the moon. They measured it and calculated it as like a quarter of a million miles.
How would you measure the distance?
To an object, if we can actually go there and know where it is.
So if you're saying it's too far away to actually measure physically yourself, then it doesn't matter.
Well, look, again, if we went to the moon, then of course we would know the distance, because we could say we've traveled so many miles.
Okay, as a physics student, literally one of the first things we did was bounce lasers off the retroreflectors on the moon. This experiment is
far
something.
Too late.
Wait. This experiment is done by thousands of people every single year. Those retroreflectors wouldn't be on the moon for us to do that if we didn't go there.
Look, I have a wealth of knowledge and information about how the moon
landings work. I doubt that
but
very
what
much.
I'm hoping, fight, please. What I'm hoping is that if we can leave this on a good note, where we're not screaming and shouting and these type of things, we can have this again.
Yes, I would like that once my channel is fucking. Can I just say, whoever fucking porn bomb, excuse my language, it's not my channel. Whoever porn bomb me, just seriously, beep.
Yeah, that was
beep.
Awful.
Grow up.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it was even a flat earther personally. I think I know exactly who it was, and they know exactly who it was, and
that was terrible.
I think we should probably start wrapping this up. Godless, is there any super chats
for
us?
Because you've left this with a very good subject about the moon landing. Like I said, I have a plethora of information about how it was a hoax. We never went there, but I don't want to start you off. But we can start that on.
I mean, I know I am fight the flat Earth, but I am looking at other things, i.e. the moon landing, anti-vaxxing, and things like that. So moon landing, I would very much like a discussion with you at some point.
Absolutely, you will be astonished.
I'm sure I will. G, is there any super chats for us?
Oh, there's a few.
Oh, you've got a few.
There super chats. Whew, I'm so glad that you asked. Okay, so super chat time. First, we got Chris Kelling. Here's to hoping FTFE gets a quick resolution and strike removed. Yeah, I really hate that that happened to you, man. And like everybody else said, that whoever's been porn bombing people, they just need to stop. Like, that's not cool. Paul Reap, $5 says, thanks for covering this, GE. You are a scholar and a wait, not saint. Thank you, Paul. Let's see. One nerd. I promise not to make any bold jokes this time. I kind of feel bad now. Okay, I'm over it. Love you, Craig. Stringer News 1 says, thanks, Godless Engineer, for stepping up to help. # community. You're welcome. Thank you to Craig Essick for his donation. He didn't have anything to say, but we do appreciate that. Gregory Schmidt says, flying at 39,000 feet the other day, saw a curve. What do you have to say about that,
Spurs?
Sorry, yeah, you can just call me Spurs, or you can call me Chemo.
Or
We
Skidmark.
normally call him Skidmark.
Can I call you Cancer?
Well, you can call me what you like, whatever makes you feel comfortable.
Okay. So, Spurs, what do you think about 39,000 foot and seeing a curve?
Yeah, that's interesting. I always enjoy when people say, I see curvature from 30,000 feet, 40,000 feet. So there's one way to verify this, is to pan across. So if you have a video and you actually see curvature, so you would pan across, and if the Earth is actually curving, you should actually see the curve going down, 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 and things like this. Yeah, I'll get into this actually, what I'm talking about. I'll be able to demonstrate what I'm talking about. I'll show you a globe and draw a ruler and show you what we expect to happen. Yeah, okay.
Break out the crowns.
All right. Then we got the Geek Room. Is my buddy Celtic 67 in here? Got a question.
I'm gonna say what that question is. Did you eat the dog dick yet? Did you eat the dog dick? Did you do it? There we go.
Wait, who found my Pornhub?
One nerd also did another one saying this chat needs to be more super. One nerd also said, I have outsmarted your slow mode, buddy. Checkmate. Chris Kelly again, tripping the light, fantastic. And then one nerd again said, slow mode this punk. Gregory Schmidt, his answer to everything, science is mean. Skiba! Like, why did you reference Skiba so much? Like, is Skiba just the one flat earther that you watch all the time, or?
Well, I watch Skiba. Yeah, of course, I watch a lot of flat earthers. But what was interesting about Rob Skiba is the question about sunsets was answered in, I feel, in the correct order, in the correct manner. Question, research, hypothesis, and test experiment. What better way to answer a question, right? To show the people that I've researched the atmosphere is or acts like a lens, and I can demonstrate this.
Except there's a problem with his conclusion. Since he used the bottom half, the lower half of a Fresnel lens, he is saying that the atmosphere gets thicker and more dense as you go up, which is demonstrably not the case.
Okay, next question. Godless, please.
I can actually confirm that. I have a friend who sends weather balloons up for shits and giggles. And as the balloon goes up, it expands because of the lack of pressure.
I love the Fox News like shift and focus. Like, all right, that's next question, guys. One nerd says, "You need sharks with lasers, damn it!" Pew pew pew. That was in response to Red Pill Philosophy being in the chat and having his whole like '60s villain laugh going on.
Red Pill's got a thing with me at the moment. He's like, he won't debate me in this situation because he thinks it's babysitting. So he'll only do it one-on-one. Basically, he wants it on his channel, blah, blah, blah. So I'll pop over there next week at some point and make him look silly. I mean, he's got that moustache that makes him look silly anyway, but, you know.
You got to ask him to twirl it, man. Look, Red Pill Philosophy, post up on your channel just a video of you looking dead face into the camera and twirl your stash, man. That's all I want to see.
Put like an old grainy, black and white film filter over it. Silent movie type villain.
Trevor Robinson said contribution for your next bottle, GE. Thank you for that. I'll buy a few 6-packs of Bud Lights for that.
I have to say, you should have got a lot more drunk.
Demonic Davros says, give this to Fight as I feel he deserves it. Plus, why do we have to disprove our science, but he doesn't? That's a good question. Why do we have to disprove our consensus, but you don't have to disprove your own flat Earth?
Spurs, I think that was directed at you.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Just go for it. So shoot that again. Sorry, say that again.
Why is it?
Sorry, go on, Godless.
Well, like in science, in actual science, we try to disprove whatever hypothesis we're working with. But it seems like for you don't have to disprove it. Like you seem to do things in order to prove your hypothesis or prove whatever idea you're trying to spout, not disprove it. So I'm kind of curious as to why you do that.
Well, I think we're disproving the globe, disproving the heliocentric model.
But
if
disproving A does not prove B.
Yeah, and if you won't go the extra steps to disprove, like the things that you've said about the Cavendish experiment, the way to disprove the globe would be to take your objections, do the experiment with your objections, and then see if the result is still the same. Then,
speaking of the
you would
Cavendish,
be disproving the globe.
Speaking of the Cavendish, I actually posted you a picture at your request, and a couple links to a Cavendish experiment within a vacuum chamber.
Okay, cool. Right, I'll check that out.
Yeah, we'll have a look at that for sure.
All right. Gemma Scout, she said, GE, it's not even Friday. Why do you platform people who have been proven wrong? And I would say that I enjoy these kind of conversations. I enjoy trying to figure out how people think about certain things and what people think. I find hearing what somebody thinks is a lot more interesting at times. But I also love the information about either why they're correct or why they're wrong. So that's why I love these conversations. Lewis Hackett, he said, I expected to hate FTFE because his intro is terrible. I don't know. I like your intro. But I didn't. FTFE made a lot of cogent points and didn't fall for a lot of Chemo's tricks. You would have won the debate, FTFE, if you never turned your camera on. Sad but true. Can I finish? I don't know what that's supposed to mean, but I don't know. I enjoy seeing your face.
Lewis will be happy now you read out his super chat message.
Yeah.
AJ Ravenwolf, Spurs, would you please explain what perspective is? Could you do that, Spurs?
Well, not now.
I can.
Yeah.
Alpha equals 2 arctan times g over 2r, where alpha is the angular size of the object, g is the actual size of the object, and r is the distance to the object.
Because we're still conducting research actually on what we're actually seeing, whether we're seeing things. The claim is that because what we hear from a lot of the ball earthers is that we're not really seeing objects. So again, that needs research. But just to give you a definition on perspective, wouldn't do the research.
So here's a hint. If you don't have a workable explanation and definition of the term, stop using it.
Well, this far, like I say,
if you do not have a definition or explanation of the term, stop using it.
Well, like I said, that's the question. Perspective. Is it perspective? We're researching that question, and hopefully we'll be able to answer that with science.
Okay. So
giving it as an answer. If you don't know how it works, don't use it as an answer.
Like I said,
So the current mathematical solution and I have to say, I love the juxtaposition of FTFE reciting the exact formula for calculating perspective, and then you're like, we're still researching it. Like, I have to say that whenever you complete your research phase of whatever special scientific method you get going on here, you need to have at least a comparable model in order for it to be taken seriously. So that would include a mathematical model.
Because what you got to understand is that we were told perspective. We were told ships are disappearing bottom perverse because of curvature. Now, you have to forgive us and be patient while we investigate if this claim is actually true. So,
to be fair, the current modern flat Earth movement was started in 1812. So you've had a pretty long time to kind of get this research at least started. And if anything, it's gone backwards because the research that I'm going to say it with air quotes, the research that you are doing now is still the same research they were doing when he formed the city of Zion in 1812 and made it illegal to say the Earth was a globe.
The difference is that it's honest research. We're not just going to assume things because
you've been assuming things all night.
Well, because you demand and require an answer.
Most certainly I do. Yes.
Exactly. So we're not going to just assume something.
But you are assuming that the Earth isn't a globe.
No.
Sadly, I was told the fire was hot. I didn't listen.
Well, again, we both observe flat. There is no reason.
I have spent months at sea, and it's most definitely not flat. I'm sorry, but I do not observe the Earth as flat. And you telling me that I do is not going to change that fact.
Well, Neil deGrasse says the Earth's curve cannot be seen from airplanes. So how you're seeing curvature from the Earth, this is why, not with me necessarily, I don't think we're going to have a problem, but you're going to have problems when you meet...
So here's my one question about Neil deGrasse Tyson is, do you think everything Neil deGrasse Tyson has ever said is 100% accurate? In general, you can't really see the curve, but if conditions are right, then you can see a slight curve. And in fact, you don't even have to be in the sky to be able to observe that. If the conditions are right and you're looking out at sea, there is still a very, very, very slight curve as you look at the horizon. This is an observable fact. It's not just flat. It's not 100% flat. It looks it, but it's not.
If you're being honest, all of us here, everybody in the chat, we observe again, if you're going to say, well, the Earth is curving, but the observations we make are flat.
No, they're not. I disagree with you.
I live in Virginia, and all I see is curvature of hills. It's
okay.
I'm talking about when we look at water, like when we stand at the beach. We observe flat. That's how I'm describing what I'm thinking here.
You mean
okay. So Spurs, did you know that if you have a good 80 miles in your field of vision, like laterally, right, horizontally, then do you know how much of the curve you're actually seeing, like according to our globe model? Do you know like the percentage of the curve?
1.34 degrees.
Yeah, I understand the scale thing, and again, this is part of the issues. You guys want it both ways. You want to say that ships are disappearing over the curvature. So if ships are disappearing over the curvature, that's your curvature. I can now see you're saying we can see curvature. Now, in the same breath, you're saying, oh wow, the scale and the curvature is too small for you to note. Well, it's like, well, hold on, is the ship disappearing over the curvature or it's not? What's going on?
And what you are seeing is a result of the
conversation right there, because in one hand we're talking about laterally, can you see like a change in the horizon, and then we're also talking about whether or not you can see the effects of the curve as you look out into the distance. So those are two very different things there.
When we say we're seeing a boat go over the curve, we're not saying we're seeing the curve, right? What we're saying is we can see the effects of the curve of the Earth,
or what looks like to be the effects of curve.
Yeah, okay, I'll grant you that it's what looks like to be the curve of the Earth. That is where you would then go and do further research, which has been done.
This is where we break down, because if you're going to assume its curvature without verifying...
No, that's not what I just said, right? I said that, look, that looks like an effect of curvature. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go and test to see if that is true. I am not making an assumption of it being true. See, you keep saying I'm making an assumption, but what I'm doing is I'm going, well, that is my observation. I'm going to go and test to see if that observation is true.
You have to research.
Oh my God, Spurs, don't go backwards again, please. We've done this. All right, Godless, next super chat.
Okay, yeah, we got to move on.
Go ahead, next one.
Yeah, Paul Reap says, "Good video. My brain hurts." Fuck, mine too. That's why I drink 2 beers for this. Macabre Malefica. Sorry if I think Maleficia.
Yeah,
I'm sorry about
patrons.
that. Plug FTFE's Patreon. What's your Patreon short URL?
It's patreon.com/fight the flat earth.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah.
Everybody go there. I'll try to get it in the description afterwards. FTFE, if you could send me that in on Twitter or something here soon.
I've also got my PayPal if you want to donate on that, which is fighttheflatearth@gmail.com. Thank you.
Okay. And then we got Zero said, why did the Cavendish experiment fail if ring laser gyroscopes show that the Earth is spinning due to ether wind? Do you have like a quick short answer for that, Spurs?
No. Again, it's still in investigation. Yeah, under investigation.
Okay, cool.
Okay, so just to clarify here, if the Cavendish experiment failed, then but the ether exists, then I'm guessing the ether would have moved it, and that's what also moves the ring laser gyroscope. I'm thinking is the thought there, but I could be wrong. Zero, you can correct me in the comments. Sorry if I got that wrong. But anyways, Flicker Light says science is a set of rules that keeps us from lying to each other or ourselves. I think that's a kind of a good alternate description of science, maybe. It definitely helps us know the truth of reality, and that's what I most appreciate about science. Rivette says everyone knows perspective isn't why stuff appear to curve. The real reason is grumbly flops. What are grumbly flops? Don't worry about it.
We all know the grumbly flops law, right?
Can I ask a question to Fight the Flat Earth?
Yes.
You like the debates. The Flat Earth debates are on daily. Yes.
Yes, with Nathan Oakley. Yes.
Nathan Oakley and Anthony. Will you be making an appearance
next week? I plan to go on at some point, most definitely. I've got a standing appointment with Dell this weekend to go on the Shed at 7. Shed on Saturday, sorry. So fantastic. I'll try and get onto the debate on Nathan Oakley's channel. What channel is he streaming on at the moment?
The Flat Earth debates currently. I believe. But if you're on Discord, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. So obviously you'll be able to message me there.
Yeah. No worries. Just join my server and I'll be available in there whenever.
Yeah. Wait, are you confirming that Nathan is trying to circumvent a streaming ban on YouTube?
No, I'm not. This is nothing. I'm just trying to let's stick to the topics here. So yeah, that's great. If you could just go on the show and
we'll take that as confirmation.
Just make your case or your claims, and that'd be great.
Yeah.
Excellent. So Godless, anything else?
Yes, we got one from Soundly. Chemo hasn't even searched yet, much less researched. And then one nerd says, I build custom furniture for a living. If it wasn't for all that math, I would have a lot of pissed off customers. I want Spurs to explain to me at what scale does math stop working? That's a good question. At what scale does it stop?
As I said, I don't want people to be confused that flat earthers think, oh, we don't need math. Of course we need math. But again, it's applying the math. So what are you applying the math to? Could you apply the math to calculating a rainbow, triangulating a rainbow? Well, of course not. Okay, so
yes, you can.
Technically, you can, but I mean,
hold on. Excuse me. I just finished. So in my mind, math would be pointless, useless, trying to calculate or pinpoint precisely where a rainbow. So the same thing is with the moon, the sun, the stars, and anything else that is in the sky.
So you say pointless, that doesn't
Eratosthenes
necessarily
used
mean
math to
impossible,
prove
right?
the circumference of the Earth back in 3 BCE in the 3rd century.
But it wasn't in Spur's mind.
So, I mean, you are special pleading with this whole math thing, because if you just simply did the math on like a circle, right? If you just did the math on the circle and you figured out exactly how like much 80 miles would represent on that circle, and then you zoomed in on it, you would see a flat line. Like, you would see a straight line. But
Yeah,
you could zoom out and you would find that it's just it's a circle.
No, but
So
I think the guest, I forget who asked the question, but I think he's asking. He uses math at work, right? Which is fine, of course. You can apply it when you're at work. But if he was trying to apply the same calculations towards the sun, well, his results would be he would get 93 million miles. He'd be so off when we know the sun is close.
Assumption.
How close is a question? Because the system that we're using to calculate the distance to the sun is giving us crazy millions of miles results.
Yeah, but again, you realize that you just made an assumption there. But you just did the thing that you've been accusing me of doing all night. We know the sun is close. That is an assumption, Spurs. Stop doing the things that you keep telling me not to. Because it is an assumption.
But again,
you don't know for a fact.
Well, it's a little bit different between things that are self-evident. If we know...
No. I'm sorry, but you can't just apply different things to what you want.
Corpuscular rays and hotspots.
That's a special plead.
Right? We understand how corpuscular rays work and
you
how
obviously don't.
Formed.
Right? I live in Scotland, right on the Firth of Forth, right, which is some amazing cloud patterns just because of the breaks in the mountains off of the where Edinburgh is to the south, and to the mountains towards the north. So I live in a place that is constantly covered in corpuscular rays, and when you drive around those corpuscular rays, they change. When you're directly underneath them, they're straight.
Well, again, you have to document this. Make observations. There's a claim you're making.
That's been documented so many times that your research is obviously so lacking that you haven't even come across that.
Well, and even then, let's get back to the actual question that came from the super chat. At what level does math start to break down? Because that super chat said that he was doing the math and everything for basic furniture. One of my prior positions, I was doing math that directly related to being able to accurately radar range an item no smaller than the computer screen I'm staring at right now from over 250 miles away from an aircraft. At what point does it break down?
When you try to calculate things that you have no idea what they are, where they are, and things like this.
Yes. And in a radar return, you don't know what it is. You don't know what it's made of. You just know you're getting a return of an object this size at this range. So at what point does the math break down?
Well, like I just said, it's giving you wild...
You've given a nonsensical answer.
No,
at what scale does it break down?
The results are wild. You're getting millions of light years away. Okay? That's
the sun.
The right
the sun isn't millions of light years away.
Things like that.
How far is the moon?
Can we move on? Because I'm not trying to debate this any further. I'm trying to wrap this up.
No, you're trying to avoid the question.
Yes. Is there any more super chats, Godless?
Let's look at this red car right here. Like, we got Rivette that says, Spurs, how do you convert meters to kilometers?
Right. Again, is this relevant to the shape of the Earth?
No, but it's a super chat. He's paid to hear you answer it, so it's only fair. How do you convert meters to kilometers?
I mean,
someone's physically paid you to answer, so come on.
Well, he can Google the answer. He can use a converter.
But you have all this information and knowledge, and the question was posed to you. Why are you running away from yet another question?
Hold on. I just Googled the shape of the Earth, and it came back round. So, is that correct too?
Oh, fantastic.
And finally, Paul Reed that says, assuming starts with ass. And we've got Luke Filewalker, who's a new member. Thank you for becoming a member of the Skeptic Mafia there, Luke.
Woo, woo.
So yeah, good stuff. Great stuff. So I think we can headline next time with the moon hoax.
Yeah, I would very much like that conversation with you. Want to do it on the non-sequitur show?
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay.
I'll get that arranged.
So I'm going to say good night. God bless. Goodbye. Thank you, Godless.
Again, thank you for jumping in at the last moment, Spurs. I do appreciate that.
Jared, it was great to see you. And Fight, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you, bud.
I guess that is the sign off. Goodbye, Spurs.
Good to see you as well. Catch you later.
Yep. See ya.
Bye-bye.
All right, Godless. Any final words?
Well, I appreciate everybody joining us tonight. It's been interesting. And I mean, I can't say that we really got anywhere with this, but it's just it's been a thing. Like, I don't know, it's been a mind trip, to be quite honest.
Thanks for having it on your channel at last minute notice as well. I really appreciate that, man.
Oh yeah, no, I you know, I'm always here to help out. And obviously my channel's up for use if anybody needs it. So yeah, I have no problems with that. But anyways, it was fun. And I guess that we'll see you heathens next time. There's not going to be a video tomorrow morning on this channel because we got this video, and you know, we'll just see you tomorrow night for a live stream.
See you later, guys. Bye.
I got something to say.
Oh yeah, go on, Pig.
Never mind. Okay. So, as the person who put this together, I have to apologize. Like, the pain that I put both Godless Engineer and Fight the Flat Earth through, at one point I had to leave to call Jared to force me back into the show.
Thanks for your effort in putting it together, Pig. I appreciate that as well.
Yeah.
But
the show will continue on to the after show,
Yeah.
UDSA,
Right.
in the live chat.
Speak to you later, guys. Bye.